Clearfield Tech. So my name is Spencer Folmar. I graduated from West Branch Area High School back in 2008, so it's almost 10 years ago. I grew up in this area. I moved here from Florida right before kindergarten, went to West Branch, kindergarten through senior year. And since then, my journey has been pretty interesting. It's taken me different places around the world. Went to college in Western Pennsylvania at Grove City College, probably a school you may or may not have heard of. And then from there, I went down to Florida, continued some education, traveled overseas in New Zealand and in England, some more education, lived in Singapore, and then worked at Microsoft a couple years doing corporate video production. And then the last 2-3 years, been doing full-time feature film narrative production. Well, first, just to give you some context, so we did shoot a film here in the area last summer. We flew in our Hollywood casting crew, and we had some crew as well from Orlando, and we were in this area shooting for 21 days. So this is a film that comes out really soon. It comes out October 6th, nationwide, 10 major markets, and then we're doing a special one-day early premiere at the Roland Theater on October 5th. And so I just want to give you some context about, the kind of films that we make. And so this is the theatrical trailer for the film that's coming out in 19 days.
Hey, please be respectful here. We are young adults. Thank you.
What is it? Did you better, Nick? So what's in our old note? Dad. The Folmar brother was in love. Is still in love? Nice to see you.
I'm back.
And this place looks worse when the sun's up.
This is someone's home you never disrespect them. Even if it's your own.
Yeah, some things never change, do they? Well, they don't. No matter how hard you try. What does sheriff mean? It's a bad history of repeating. Family. I just want the pain to go away. Where are you? Huh?
I can get trust to hurt. Nine. It'll be easy.
Tell me, how do you forgive Bill for what he did?
You left me too, Drew. I had to leave.
You walk in here acting like things have changed. Like you've changed.
The man should be down and look at himself in the mirror. Look himself in the eye and know exactly who he is. I couldn't do that. And I couldn't do it.
Can you now? I'm just so scared I'm gonna end up like him.
So hopefully you guys are all over PG-13 rating. So the film, 20% of the film was shot in Florida, but all 80% of the film was actually shot in Clearfield County. Maybe you recognize some of the locations: downtown Clearfield, Super 322 Drive-In, Gates Hardware, that used to be Arrowhead Restaurant. It was really great shooting in this area. Even whenever I'm seeing some of our crew back in Los Angeles, they still talk about how much they like this area. And that's kind of what I want to talk about to you guys today. I know there may seem like something like what I'm doing may not be attainable for you, but especially like with this new program that you guys are starting, it's completely attainable. In fact, I got my start doing YouTube video production back in 9th grade. What are the age ranges here? From 9th until 12? No.
11th to 12th.
Just 11th and 12th. All right.
Some 10th graders.
All right, brilliant. So ninth grade, we had this class at West Branch called Safety Ed, and so it was, to prep you for doing driving and all that kind of stuff. And so instead of making, a poster or writing a paper, me and a couple buddies, we created a video on YouTube, short form. And from there, I just continued making videos, continued making better videos, and then started doing commercial work with State Farm and some other local businesses to be able to buy better equipment to make better videos. And before I even graduated from high school, I had made my first feature film just with a couple buddies, applying a lot of the education that you guys are available to you on YouTube and like what this new class is going to offer. I'd like to give you a little bit of a formalized, this is where I live. I don't know if you guys, any of you guys been out to Los Angeles or to Hollywood? Yeah? Anyone else? Oh, two? It's great. Go out there, see it. It's amazing. It's a very unique place. I'll talk a little bit, if I have time, about the unique experience of living in Hollywood and what the kind of community is of creatives there, people who are very welcoming of any kind of, person or passion that you have. But so from West Branch to Hollywood, my house is just at the bottom of that hill. I like this picture because then it also gives us context. Our office is just a little bit off the screen. And then the other side of the Hollywood Hill is what's called Studio City. That's where like Burbank is, Warner Brothers Studios and Fox Studios and NBC Universal. There's just these like hundreds of acres of sound stages and movie lots, and that's where almost all the pictures that you see on the screen are shot. Have a clicker. So, Joseph Campbell, he studied the hero's journey. His writings really informed George Lucas whenever George Lucas was creating the mythology of Star Wars. And so, Joseph Campbell wrote this in A Hero with a Thousand Faces. He says, whenever we're reading stories, whenever we're seeing ourselves in these heroes, or whenever watching movies, what we're all seeking is an experience of being alive. And I really think that's true. I know that a lot of people say that we have a short attention span. I'm probably, I guess, 10 years or maybe 12 years older than a lot of you. I don't think that's necessarily true because we do still give our attention to a single source, a film, in a dark screen or a dark room, and we pay money just to give our undivided attention to a story for 2 hours. You even tell your friends to put away their phones because you just want to get lost in that feeling of being alive. But I don't think that feeling only has to exist whenever you're watching a movie. I think you can have that same feeling in your own life. And we all only have one life. And I lost sight of that myself. Whenever I was living in Seattle, when I was working 3 different jobs, starting at 3 in the morning actually working at Starbucks, and then going to Microsoft, and then working at a school, and getting done at my day around 11:30 p.m. at night, I sort of hit a wall. I realized I wasn't making ends meet, and I was repeating a pattern that wasn't working. I was working 3 jobs. A lot of situations in my life led me to hitting a wall. And so instead of just returning home and repeating this pattern that wasn't working, repeating this pattern of failure and defeat, I stopped and I sat back down at my desk at 11 p.m. at night, and I wrote down on a piece of paper, what is it or what was it in my life that I felt most alive? What was it where I felt like if I could do this, if I could continue to do this again and again in my life, what would that be? And it took me back to my high school days, whenever I was making YouTube videos or feature films with friends or family or people who felt like family after I had traveled with them for a month on set. And so, in all my time in my life, I'd done a lot of different things. I've lived different places, studied different disciplines, and I remembered what you guys could be formulating right now, what it was that before all of the, whenever you get out into the real world, there's going to be a lot of other different complexities and difficulties that you're all going to have to deal with whenever you get out and live an actual life outside of these classrooms and outside of these schools when people aren't telling you what you have to do anymore. But you can still, in this time, find what it is in your life that makes you passionate, that makes you excited, and whenever the cynicisms of the world or depression or whatever it is that sets into your life, you can remember that feeling of being alive. Not only in film, and I think film can remind you of that, but you can start formulating that right now and prepare to continue to protect that feeling for the next 10 years or 15 years or 20 years and continue to persevere and chase that dream. So that's particularly why film is so important to me, is that it reminds me of that passion and it motivates me today to continue persevering. So, kind of talked a little bit about this already, but from point A to point B, point A being Central Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and whenever I'm thinking about home, whenever I'm writing a script about home, I think about this area, I think about Clearfield. Point B being Los Angeles, California. As soon as I got off the plane yesterday morning, my family picked me up at the airport. I came back to this area. It's quite different, and I've lived overseas, like in New Zealand or other places. There's many different pockets of life. There's many different realities of life. If this isn't a reality that you like, you have the option after you graduate to move out and find a new reality. I love this area, and I knew that I had to move away from this area in order to pursue my dreams and to go to the mecca of all the film industry, which is Hollywood, California. And it is a very different reality. Like everything, my daily, walk to work and the people I interact with and everything else is a different reality. And I love this reality, and I love the Los Angeles reality. For me personally, I don't like to compartmentalize my life as far as this is when I lived in Central Pennsylvania, this is when I lived overseas, this is when I live in Hollywood. If I look back on my life, I can appreciate how this time here has informed the kind of stories I tell in Los Angeles, the kind of life I'm living in Los Angeles. And so this isn't only just an education, but even like these interactions that you're having with your classmates or the way that you treat others or the way that others treat you, it's going to inform the rest of your life. I know that seems like pretty weighty and overwhelming right now, but these moments matter. Hopefully someone here, perhaps that either wasn't inspired or was depressed, maybe something I say will have an effect on you. I know I can look back on my life, a lot of speakers and people from our area that went off and did unique things have inspired me. So my point A to point B from West Branch to Hollywood, told you a little bit about taking my personal inventory as far as whenever I was hitting a wall in my own life and then changing that, breaking a repeating pattern that wasn't giving life, and then starting over. I mean, if you do find in your life, especially after you graduate from here, if you find in your life that your life looks very different than how you imagine it to be, and I know you guys all have different dreams. I'm not saying you need to move to Los Angeles or you need to move out of this area. I'm saying that you all have a unique dream, a unique passion, a unique offering to the world that no one else can replicate. And we are all benefited, society has benefited whenever you are pursuing what is making you feel alive. And that can be anything. And don't let other people define it for you, because it will never be your true, unique offering to the world. When you stand out, or when you do something different, you may experience criticism. There may be obstacles or roadblocks. People may try and wear you down, and break your spirit. And I wish I could say that that never happened to me, but it certainly does. Especially like an art form, right? Like, if you guys do see this film, you will see, and I won't be there to defend it, you'll see exactly what my best efforts were in creating a picture, and I will not be there to defend myself. But expect criticism, expect failure. I've failed a lot. I've gotten a lot of criticism. Some of it I've earned, and some of it I'd like to think I didn't earn. And expect criticism. Aristotle has a really interesting quote, and I remember it, and I actually have it posted in my office. But Aristotle said, criticism is something we can easily avoid. By saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. And I want you to have that set in, right? What does that look like for you? If you succumb to criticism and you succumb to what other people think about you and you let fear of man dictate your life, what is left? What kind of life do you even have an option of living if you succumb to criticism? I know that's tough. I know that's a hard word. And I know that criticism, the pain of criticism, the pain of rejection and of disappointment and failure, usually that pain doesn't seem worth ever trying. And I can tell you that the pain is worth it. The pain of rejection, the pain of criticism is worth standing out and doing whatever it is in your life that makes you feel alive. Apathy, which is kind of what Aristotle was pointing towards. Apathy is the absence or suppression of passion, emotion, or excitement. So like if there's a subject you're studying and you don't care much about it. I'm not particularly gifted in math and sciences. And I got through them, I passed my classes, but it's not something that when I wake up in the morning, I can't wait to take a math test. Yet there are other things, there's other areas, there's other passions. And look at your own life as far as what makes you passionate. If it's a video game or a type of film or a school activity or whatever you do after school that you no longer have to do, try and find those passions in your life, write them down, and try and see how they can be implemented in your career, in your life. And your career matters a lot. I mean, that's what you spend, as your teachers will tell you, that's what you spend 50, 60, for me, 70 hours a week is at my career. And it should somehow reflect who you are as an individual, who it is about you that makes you passionate. So never, this again goes to the criticism, never abandon your dreams just because someone else is living their nightmare. I'm sure, I know it, that I'm sure there's going to be people in your life that are going to tell you, you can't do that, right? You can't pursue that, you can't be that person. And those voices are tough. Sometimes it's very close voices. Sometimes it's family members that will tell you that you can't do this for whatever reason. But just because someone else is living their nightmare, don't let them dictate your life. Whatever it is, you can pursue it, and it might be difficult, and the nail that stands out is the one that first get hammered down. But it is worth it, and even though people may criticize you and try and dictate your life, it'll be worth it. This is probably my hardest quote. I came across this quote right before I spoke at the West Branch graduation last summer, and I played whether or not to use this quote then and now. But for me, it's motivating, and I think it really puts the stakes at the ultimate level. Somebody once told me the definition of hell. It's tough, hell. On your last day on earth, the person you became will meet the person you could have become. Obviously, we're all going to make mistakes, we're going to have failures, and that's part of this journey. What I don't want for you and what I don't want for my own life is whenever you get towards the end of your life, or whenever you have a terminal disease, or you have stayed in that same rut that I got into for not only a couple years, but maybe 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 years, a lifetime of being in a rut that isn't working. You know your potential. You do more than anyone else. A lot of people will say you don't have potential, or we come from this area, and people from this area don't whatever. But that's just lies. You have great potential. Each and every one of you have great potential. And you know who you can become. You do. No one else does. You define that. You write down what you're passionate about, what makes you feel alive. Everyone, it feels like some days, everyone's only point of existence is to tear you down or to stop you from pursuing your dreams. And you will have to persevere, not just for a couple weeks, or not for a couple days, but for years. This next film, the picture that's coming out October 6th nationwide, it has far exceeded my and our team's expectation. We were hoping for a distribution deal. We were hoping for maybe a couple of screens, especially in this area. but it has far exceeded our expectations, and I'm very thankful for that. We're in the works of creating more films. We have a slate of 3 films that we're funding with some names that will be much more recognizable than the names in this picture. But 6 weeks before we started shooting the film, my executive producer, we were talking about everything that still had to get done in these 6 weeks before principal photography began. Before we flew out all the talent from Los Angeles, and we paid off all the permits and the insurance and everything else. And 6 weeks before shooting, my executive producer, he's an older man. We actually met at graduate school. And he said, maybe if we cancel this now, push it back 6 months, shoot it in the fall, we'll have more time, the picture will be better, and maybe we can still get a refund on some of these flights and everything else. And I said to Thurman, and it's a little bit corny, but I said to Thurman, Thurman, this is going to be the best film that we have ever made. But it won't be the greatest film we'll ever make. And so I feel often that especially artists can be delayed or slowed down by wanting it to be just right or waiting until, quote unquote, you're ready. But you're never going to be truly ready. You can never prepare for whenever you're jumping off and taking a leap into a new career or pursuing a new degree or doing something big like starting a company or making a film. You're never going to be truly ready. And so you really just have to leap at some point. You have to have faith in yourself and in the work and in your dedication. And you have to take a leap. And you have to try something big. And in those moments when it's most scary and it's most difficult and all of the voices of criticisms are ramping up, those are the moments of life that you'll remember. Like, you'll remember that. You won't remember whenever you're just clocking in. You'll remember whenever you're doing something big in your life that made you afraid and that there was great potential of failure. That's what you'll remember, and that's what you'll tell your kids and you'll tell your grandkids. And that's the kind of life that you need to live for your own sake, but also for those of us watching you. You're the next generation. I'm already getting older. There's already, you're the next generation. And we need you to take risk and to stand out and to live your authentic life recklessly in the pursuit of your dreams and passions to better yourself and better others, and better this area, and better the world wherever you might move to. Don't wait, just create.